Good afternoon, Rachel.
Hello. Charlene, I got your email. I just responded back to you. I added those questions.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
And I just typed in, I think there might be some late today. There was a pre-P&T that was scheduled.
Oh, right. That would make sense.
I'll just put myself on mute until then.
think everybody will be joining shortly if they haven't been filtering in.
Jacqueline's away today, so she won't be here. But it looks like most of the other sites are all here.
We're here. Anthony, are we waiting on Tammy?
Sorry, waiting for Osam. He just
Oh,
joined.
Sam.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Sorry about that. Just everything froze on me for a minute. All right, thanks everyone for joining. Now we're a few minutes late at the pre-PNT, but let's get started. Let's get this meeting started, and we'll go ahead with. I think we have a small agenda, but at the same time, be packed, given that will be a day in the life of the pharmacist. But first, Charlene, you're here. You want to go ahead with the first agenda item, which is, sorry, too many.
Just to review the
Yep.
Too many
cutover
items open.
meeting invites.
Sorry.
I got it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just for Charlene to speak to the cutover meeting invites that I believe everybody on this call received.
Sorry, I missed that. Everything is freezing on me again. Can you repeat that, Rachel?
Yep. So agenda item 1 is just for Charlene, just to kind of briefly, very quickly review what the meeting invite that everybody would have received for the cutover meeting on Fridays.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Charlene.
Yeah, so the cutover meeting, so we have been having some cutover meetings with organizations on a separate basis. I just thought rather than reiterating the same comments to different groups of people, we would invite everybody to one singular meeting so that everybody's hearing the same message at the same time and the same message at the same time. And that'll allow us to start going through those cutover documents and just making sure that everyone is understanding the cutover piece, what is going to be necessary from the clinical piece, as well as some of the supply chain pieces as well, so that everybody is in good shape when we are going live with the system, making sure that you have all the necessary people and all the necessary tasks being completed. Was there anything additional, Rachel, to add to that? Anna?
I just want to say thank you
I
for
don't think so.
that
I think that was
because
it.
oh, sorry. I just want to say thank you for that because, to be honest with you, there's a few of us who have not been in these meetings and feel quite left out, and that we are feeling like, oh, I guess so and so is getting all the information and they're having all these meetings and the rest of us aren't, and all the eggs seem to be in one basket, and the few of us, the other organizations, are feeling kind of ostracized because we aren't getting that and we didn't even know we could ask for these additional things. And that is a conversation I've had with a few people, so I actually do appreciate that we're coming together, because then we're not leaving people out and other people not having the information, which has been
Nope.
a real source
All
of
set.
frustration. Thank you.
And before, sorry, Rasha?
Just to differentiate, there are 3 types of cutoff. Are you talking meetings? There is the supply chain, there is the Omni, and there is the clinical. You're talking specifically about the clinical, right?
Clinical and some supply chain.
Yes, that would be very nice. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, the Omnicell and the Pyxis cutovers are being handled by a different group of meetings.
And Charlene, you're referring to the email, the invite for Friday, right?
Friday,
At 12
yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I believe it's a weekly meeting, so that if anything kind of comes up, if any questions come up, then we can address them during that weekly meeting. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. At the last meeting, there was a request talking about workload. and workload documentation. So I wanted to make sure the link was sent out to everybody. Did you all have a chance to look at the documentation, the pharmacy workload documentation link?
Sorry, Charlene, I don't know if that was shared out. I know that there was a switch with the agenda for today to the day in the
okay.
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought this was shared though with everybody.
Nope, but I can
If
send
it-
that out after the meeting with the link and everything for everybody.
So I'll just take a couple quick minutes. This information was shared by Hosam a month or two ago with regards to workload documentation. It is posted on the Lumio project as well, somewhere deep in SharePoint. I have the link. That's the only way I find things is by a link. So I'll have Rachel share that link to you. And basically it goes through the different types of workload documentation. Things that are service recipient are patient specific. And then there's also non-service recipient activities. In the backend tools, there are also things that will be automatically capturing workload. So for the number of orders that are verified, there's already data associated to that. For number of orders that are placed, things like that. There's already documentation that will be gathered by your reporting team in the workload reporting documents. But we'll cover this information at a future meeting. So we're not going to talk about it today. But I want you guys to go in, take a look at the documentation so that you're familiar, and then that way we can have some good discussion about anything that is still unclear.
And I think the plan is to invite someone from reporting team as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we said, oh, that is the meeting agenda item that we said was going to be for November 6th, workload documentation.
Anna?
This is in the, I did see this in the, on the website under your job aids. So I did, it is on there. So I did see that. The only thing I will comment on, so maybe we can take that to there. I didn't see a lot. So I think all our sites maybe document workload a little bit differently. My techs also have to do their own workload documentation for volumes. And so I didn't see like packaging volume and some of that stuff in here. And I just want to make sure that we can have that non-service recipient, making sure that I didn't see all the options there. I just didn't know that if they did or did not exist for some of those other pieces, because I didn't see it in this document.
I think this is just a high-level screenshot. So if you log in, because you should have access now to CERT domain, log in.
No. I don't have access to CERT. I used Megan's CERT, and I actually could not find how to find this workload stuff. I tried to follow this document and was not able to access.
Okay, we'll address that on the November 6th meeting.
Who should we be
Rasha?
asking?
So
who should we be asking to make sure we have access to this so that we're prepared for that meeting and we have time to look at it?
I would, so CERT access was supposed to be given to at least 1 or 2 people. They can't give CERT access to everybody.
Yep.
There's not enough licenses. So I would reach out to your Lumio lead to see if you can have CERT access.
Megan has CERT access, and I used her access. Don't quote that, but I couldn't find this in there. Like I tried to find where it was, and I couldn't. So I just wasn't sure where it existed.
Anna,
yep.
If you like, we can set up a meeting. I can show you.
Okay. Or if you have a thing that has screenshots, I can follow along, but I could not find it based on what was in this document.
Yes, so that goes to my next point of a demonstration. It was very useful to see these documents on the library. It was a revelation when I went in and actually looked at all the job aids. Very, very helpful. But for that sort of thing, the workload measurement, because we never really encountered any kind of training for it or a demonstration. I think maybe one time you went onto the on and showed us how to look at the reports, where to find it. Would it be possible to have a demo organized?
Wednesday, November 6th.
November 6th.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Awesome.
right, good discussion. We'll, any other questions about this one here? All right, we'll move to the next item then, which is the main topic of this meeting, which is day in life demo. And again, it's Charlie. Not sure what we would have done without you.
Oh, you would have done lots. Don't you worry. So I'm going to log in as a pharmacist. So my day in the life demo is going to concentrate as a pharmacist. And so as a pharmacist, the pharmacist will be mainly working in PowerChart and Medication Manager. So this particular pharmacist set up these various icons. There may be a small amount of going into Discern Analytics, which is the reporting tool. Mostly, I would say maybe your infectious disease people might run certain reports out of there. As a practicing pharmacist, I never go into reports. I manage my patient loads out of 2 applications, MedManager and PowerChart. So as a pharmacist, when I log in to PowerChart, my landing page, oh, I should have put this on the other screen. My landing page is the clinical pharmacy work list. And this clinical pharmacy work list is where the system will find things. So rather than hunting for labs and hunting for patients that are on injectables that should be changed to POs, things like that, you can use the clinical pharmacy work list to find and gather that information to guide you on who you might need to see for the day. The typical place where I work is Pharmacy Patient Monitor. Pharmacy Patient Monitor is your work queue for all orders that need to be verified. And your work queue for all orders that need to be verified can be sorted in various ways, but the default is anything that is red, which means it is a stat ordered medication. And so we need to work on verifying those orders as quickly as possible so that the nurses can administer and chart, knowing that the pharmacist has done their double check in the background. A reminder, as soon as an order is placed in the system, it can be acted on by the nursing staff, regardless of whether that order has been verified or not. So if they have access to the drug and there is an active order, the nurse can begin administration and charting on that administration outside of pharmacy verifying those orders. Which again is why typically you want to keep your queue manageable and under control so that all of these orders are processed, that all the pharmacy double checks for dosing and appropriateness and everything are taken into consideration before patients actually get the medications administered. Any question about that so far? So reds are stats. Oranges are now doses, so not urgent, but quickly to be processed. And then anything with no color is just a standard administration that might be due at the next standard admin time. So Pharmacy Patient Monitor are all your orders that need to be verified. The second tool that is the things that need to be done today is your multi-patient task list. So order verification needs to be done today. Your multi-patient task list will list out all your consults that have been placed in the system and any active interventions. So if there's something that you need to follow up on a patient tomorrow for an order that was placed today, you can open an intervention form, not sign it off, and it will be listed in the active interventions pile. Interventions can also include consults. So even though you have active interventions and active consults, you might see similar tasks on the similar tabs. I'm just going to close my door because I think it's about to get loud in my house. Children just got home. So the multi-patient task list is something that these are things that have to be done today. If they don't get done today, much like the nurses use their MAR, this I consider the pharmacist's MAR. If they don't get closed off, they will go into an overdue status. I don't know if we have any. You can see this alarm clock on this one. It looks like it was scheduled for for October 18th. And you can see this is an overdue task. This looks like somebody on an oncology regimen, so something that the oncology pharmacist would be doing. So these will go, for lack of a better term, red, saying that they're overdue. They won't fall off until somebody does an action on it. So they would chart that it was done, or they would chart the details. To close out the interventions, again, you would chart the details. So if this BPMH document was done, it will open up the tool. You can, once you confirm that everything is correct in terms of the patient's med history, everything is good, there's nothing additional that needs to be done, I would sign the form. Oh, let me go to the pharmacy workload tab. So it was 30 minutes. BPMH reconciliation, and I'm going to sign the form. And now when I refresh it, this should go away. So this should be a completed check mark indicating that it was done. It won't fall off of my screen if this is the same patient. It won't actually fall off of my screen until the servers do what they need to do and clean out the completed data. So it may remain here. It's not going to drop off automatically right away until the servers do what they need to do. Nelson.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, and this is for mine as well. So what will appear here on the list will be all pharmacy interventions, regardless of the user, that apply to your patients in the patient list. So I guess
Correct.
Keep in mind, if someone clicked save and not the green check mark, if they just clicked save the day before, like Daniel was looking at my patient, he clicked save the day before. When I open it up today, I'm going to see Daniel's intervention here. Doesn't necessarily, but like just keep in mind, I guess. So all pharmacy interventions will appear here until they're completed, but for your designated patients over on the side. Is that correct?
Yes. So, and I don't know if mine is going to work. but you can change your patient view. So if I want Quinty Health, my only problem is if I change my patient list, there may not be anything in here. And again, the date is for Wednesday, October 23rd. So anything that's due for today on any of these patients, but it doesn't look like there's any interventions or consults on any of these test patients. Oh, Sam?
Just a quick question, something that was brought up earlier, maybe a few months ago. Given that those forms, when you went in for the ad hoc documentation and you kind of did the intervention and everything and documented the workload as well, would that be showing on the patient chart in addition to the intervention, the workload?
So if I open this patient chart and I go to the documentation, remember what I said last week. Everything that you document on every form will be seen somewhere in the chart. So if I go to that patient and their documentation, and so because it's still in there as typically where I would see it is I would see it here in Form Browser. In my current work environment, I see things in Form Browser, but it doesn't look like.
I believe,
Functioning
Charlene, if you
right.
go under, and you might be
Documentation.
trying to show something else, but I believe if you go under documentation is where
It's right
it
there.
appears for ours.
Well,
No, it's not there.
So there's, yeah, the BPMH
so that's the
documentation.
form. Yeah, so that's the form. I was just looking for something with today, but it looks like it saved the date that it was originally started at.
So would that be viewable, the intervention, in addition to the workload documented by pharmacy staff member?
So the workload might be somewhere down. Yeah, so
at the
it's
very bottom.
here. It's within the document.
Okay.
And you raise a good question, Hussam, and that came up at one of the integration testings, and it was determined that there was not a way to suppress the view from the documentation template for these
Yeah, I'm
items.
asking-
It will appear, yeah.
Because I did ask Janet about this before, like how currently,
Mhm.
if you submit a workload or anybody else, I do not see, nobody else sees it, right? Like it's the back end, but it looks like this is now showing that like everybody can see everybody's workload documentation. So I was asking about from the confidentiality perspective or privacy perspective, if that would be an issue.
So privacy only applies to
Patients.
and patient information. Workload measurement is not private information.
And I guess this workload, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not necessarily dispensary work, so this would be if there's documentation or clinical intervention on the pharmacist's part, where they'd be entering it in on the patient.
Yeah, I just brought this up so everyone is aware that this is will be visible, like everybody can see everybody else's, unlike the current process for some of the organizations. Thanks. Russia?
Excuse me, sorry. It shows that it took 30 minutes to document this note, so it really starts from you start till you hit save, and if you interrupt and come back, it will be a completely different workload document, or it's gonna add up the.
It's whatever you put in that
It's
document.
manual.
It's manual.
Oh, okay, so
It's
you
not
I thought
computer generated.
I
It's
see.
manual.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Charlene.
No problem. what was I going to say? So, I mean, from a pharmacist point of view, you're really working in pharmacy patient monitor and your multi-patient task lists. Now, once you're caught up in all your order verification and all the tasks have been completed, then you would move to that clinical work list where you might, this doesn't have much in here, but we'll see if there's some Quinte Health patients. So you would move to your clinical work list, which might have some additional information. All of these consults to pharmacy, I'm going to say, are the 90-day consult rule that's in there. They are active orders, but they won't actually flow over to your multi-patient task list to do anything with until that 90 days is met. So that was one of the OCP requirements about that patients' charts get reviewed every 90 days if they are still there and in your facility. So that's where these consults are. I can maybe. So within the clinical work list, we have some, they call them high risk categories. So remember, Cerner uses terminology that does not always equal what we consider high risk. So consults to pharmacy are in there, creatinine clearance is in there, therapeutic drug monitoring. I'll kind of go touch. So the creatinine clearance below 30 mils per minute has a set list of drugs that we would want to be notified of if a patient's creatinine clearance went below 30, so with that we can monitor accordingly and see if we need to dose adjust. So instead of maybe in current state system, you are searching for that information, or, you know, patients get certain medications and you say, oh, I want to, you know, make sure that this patient's creatinine goes up or down. The system can do that for you with a set defined list of drugs. And I don't know, Nelson, if you have the ability to maybe go into that rule to see what those lists of drugs are, because I think people are going to say, what is that list of drugs? And maybe we can get that list for you and we can submit it as part of the minutes instead of today. That would be great. The therapeutic drug monitoring is IV to PO step down. So again, we have a set list of drugs that we might want to look at to see if the patient is eligible for IV to PO step down. The system will look to see if they are NPO in the chart, if they have no temperature, are afebrile, and there's a couple of other monitoring parameters. So again, for the minutes to this meeting, we'll see if we can get the parameters and what drugs are included in there. Potential hyperkalemia is patients are ordered an oral supplement and they are on an IV fluid that also contains potassium, or vice versa. And again, that's just to reduce patient risk. QT monitoring. I've never used the leave of absence, and I'm not sure that I know what the Lumio leave of absence high risk category is, so I'm going to skip that. QTC monitoring. So if QTC monitoring is needed on particular sets of drugs, if anything is in the system that's charted, that might indicate that there's an issue with QTC and they are on this set list of drugs, it's going to populate into this window. Glucose management is patients are only on sliding scale and not on a regular scheduled insulin. So again, we know that sliding scale insulin management is not gold standard. Patients should be on some sort of regularly scheduled insulin and using the sliding scale to adjust accordingly. So Sam?
Yeah, I think it just the nomenclature is doesn't apply to the LOE. So it's not really a high risk category. This is just the leave of absence is basically when we pull it in as a category, it just pulls every patient that has an order for LOAs. And that applies mostly for Providence, given that we have like almost daily LOA orders.
Excellent. The ADE monitor alerts, if I recall this one correctly, is those trigger drugs such as naloxone, Benadryl, flumazenil, vitamin K. So again, ISMP says, hey, you should be monitoring for your trigger drugs. And those might indicate areas where the Vanessa's Law comes into place, or where an incident has occurred. Something was ordered too much, too little, that caused an adverse event. Maybe it doesn't, but it's where you can monitor for your adverse drug events and then accordingly report to Health Canada. I wish I knew which one this was, and it doesn't open up any higher. So let's see if there is. To be able to hit OK here. CERT is not being very nice to me.
CERT is realizing you're giving a demonstration and is giving people time to absorb the steps in between and ask questions.
These nurse units don't belong to Kingston. Yeah. These look like Kingston Hotel 2. There we go. So I can list out which units I want to monitor. If I'm taking care of specific units, I can set up my own patient list. Now, if I hit OK, there's my population list. If I hit the view, based on the criteria, there's no qualifying. And again, because we're in CERT, there's not a lot of lab information. There's not a lot of order specific information and things that I might not be able to demo out to you. But those are the 3 areas that your pharmacists are going to be working in. Pharmacy patient monitor, number 1 priority, your orders. Number 2 priority, your tasks. Number 3 priority are your nice to-dos if you can get to them. For documentation, I don't know if there is anything that needs to be gone over with regards to documentation. Basically, once I've performed something, I would do an to capture workload. I would do your service recipient documentation in MedManager because it attaches to the patient and it attaches to a specific drug. And then it'll capture your workload minutes. If I strictly document in the patient chart, the documentation will be there. I can add a dynamic document. In my own practice, I have my own templates that I can cut and paste so it looks all nice and pretty. That's probably an optimization that your Lumio Ops team will do at some future date. It might not be within the first year. It'll be kind of use what we have now. If you use a particular consult note, you can favorite it by clicking on the little star. So if I want to do discharge med lists, discharge notes as a pharmacist, free text note, what else might be in here that you might use? they become your favorites. So they're easy to find. If I want to document anything, this consult note, I can pull in things that are already documented in the chart. So if there's a chief complaint, I would pull that in if it was documented. History of present illness, if there is any. In this patient chart, doesn't look like there is. Meds have already pulled in. So this is the same type of note that the physicians will be using to document any assessments. I can insert a free text field and I can type as much as I want in there. And so once I can save it or I can sign and submit it. If I save it, it doesn't necessarily see progress note. I'll be able to see it. But you'll see that it's italicized. This means that it's in there, but it's not yet completed. In order to get it to show as a completed, you'd have to click on it. You'd have to right click in the box and sign it. Refresh, and you'll see now it's no longer italicized. So anything that's italicized means that whoever's created that note has not finalized it yet. But to that respect, this note, if it took me 15, 20 minutes to look at the patient, write the note and everything, there are no workload units that have been associated to that. So again, as a pharmacist, you want to capture your workload unit. So I would go back into that patient and I would create, or I would go using that service recipient and non-service recipient workflow off of the previous document that we were showing earlier. I would have to chart my minutes in there. Any questions about that? Really, as a pharmacist, that's what I do. I live in those three worlds. Pharmacy patient monitor, multi-patient task list, clinical work list. Susan, is there anything that you wanted to add with regards to?
I'm unexpectedly here today because my training ended earlier. I'd be more prepared, but I don't see PCS list on your toolbar. Can you? Yeah, click on that. Do you have any work lists available? Okay. So my plan was to go through this next week.
Next week.
Sorry?
Yeah, next week. Yep.
Next week, yeah. To identify, there are other rules other than those standard Cerner high-risk category groups that, together with Megan Reardon, we built probably about a year ago, and we've been testing. A lot of them have to do with antimicrobial stewardship, but they would appear in here. So I can go through this next week on how this would be used to actually have rules fire in the background to identify people that you might want to look at as a clinical pharmacist. So they're truly surveillance rules. They don't do anything in and of themselves except for identify people.
So again, this would be a tool that you would use to find patients that need some sort of intervention. Anna?
I think it'd be very helpful to have a job aid for this, for Sue, what you're going to talk about. Because I know that the person for LACGH won't be able to attend the meeting next week, so it'd be very helpful if we were able to have a job aid.
Yeah, there is one drafted. It is not a standard one. It was a Lumio drafted one. So I'll be reviewing it and updating it as I've learned more in the last 6 months as well. So that is the plan for this.
I'm just going to log in now as a regular technician. I am not going to go through pharmacy supply chain technician because that is truly a specific workflow that will be handled next week by Matt and the final of the supply chain technician training.
Just to add to that, Charlene, I think what would be also very helpful is there a document that outlines what a pharmacist can or can't access, what a technician can or can't access, and what supply chain can or can't access? Because I'm finding out from others to say, hey, you know, you just can't, as a pharmacist, do a stock inquiry to make sure that you have something on the shelf if you're going to recommend something. And so now I'm like, oh shoot, everybody needs supply chain access, because there's certain functions that we do literally all the time that we now don't know that we now are finding out that I guess we can't do that. Do we have some sort of a document that outlines what?
We don't really have a document, but I think that, and Hosam can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that was why we created supply chain positions for both pharmacists and technicians.
Okay.
Versus regular pharmacist and technician positions.
Okay.
Because
so
there was some discussion that the supply chain pieces, like the inventory tool pieces, are not accessible by your general pharmacist and general technician positions.
Okay, so I think that I'll have to make that clear to Marie-France, because she said it was going to be difficult to add for the pharmacist, but easy to do for the tech.
We already have supply chain pharmacist positions built in the system. So it's just a matter of changing the positions on your people from pharmacist to pharmacist supply chain.
And when they have that,
and
they have both, right? So pharmacist supply chain has all the pharmacists plus all the supply chain needs. Okay. I don't think she knew that existed. And if I have to go through her to do that, somebody has to know this, right? So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was discussed maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and as per the request from KHSC. But anyways, yeah, I know this is one of the things I remember, but it's basically as supply chain positions have all the supply chain applications access. Otherwise, the regular pharmacists and techs do not have that. Craig?
So is the intent for, like, I would like to have, like, all my team's going to need that. So I have no use for a non-supply chain pharmacist or non-supply chain technician. But I am assuming that gives them a ton more access than is probably intended. Is there thought and optimization to actually, just give that limited scope of, hey, I need to know how much stuff I have on hand, to the standard assignment?
You would just assign all your staff to the supply chain position.
Is there risk with that?
No.
No.
If they don't know how to use the tool, they won't go in it, would be my.
Arguably, if you don't know how to use the tool, you can make things a hell of a lot worse.
Well, I think I recall this was a question coming from one of your team members, Craig, as well, during the training. And I think the idea was, because those are completely separate applications, that it's not gonna be something that the pharmacy staff member will just go in, like, inadvertently click on things.
No, I'm not worried about inadvertently.
Yeah.
It's the intentional. But anyway, that's fine. I just didn't know is there a thought in the future, and obviously not for now, but for later on in optimization to maybe rein this in a little bit. But my guess is
How would
probably
you,
not, 'cause it's
the only
specific.
way to the only way to rein it in would be for you to assign the correct position to the correct person.
And what I'm saying is the correct position doesn't exist.
There are
My team
two.
needs
There's
to-
a regular pharmacist and the pharmacist supply
No,
chain.
I
Thank
think
you.
what Craig means is he may need like one application access to just view things out of the 10 in the supply chain. So
So yeah, that would mean a whole new position review of privileges and preferences. And it may be something that's done in optimization, but it's not something that's normally done.
Russia?
So, right on the same topic, because I remember Quinty supply chain staff did bring that crediting items. You can't do that unless you're a supply chain. Can I just confirm that my memory is accurate on this?
I don't think so. I think you can do that as a regular pharmacist.
And a pharmacy technician, like if something came from the floor, you can credit it without having access to the supply chain. And the second
Absolutely.
one, okay, good.
Yeah.
And the barcode,
That's
so
interesting.
as we continue to scan the barcode to make sure that we add any products, I think post, like, is that only supply chain also, or anybody can access that?
Yeah. Anyone can access.
Anyone can access, okay, and so that post go live, is that gonna be also continuing or still?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's gonna affect the workload. Okay, thank you.
So here's the pharmacy technician. So as a pharmacy technician, I can open up pharmacy inpatient formulary manager, and I have the barcode validation tool. Because you don't necessarily need to be a supply chain person to validate a barcode. All I'm doing is scanning and saying, do I have this product in my inventory?
Thank you.
Okay. As a pharmacy technician, I can also do charge credits. So if I don't know if I'm going to find a patient that's going to be able to do this, but if I search by patient, so if I search by patient, I have the ability to add, so from dispense location, Burr1, if I, Orchid Main. So I can charge or credit. So there are no charges to this patient so far because everything that's been ordered so far is either not been dispensed. So this one hasn't been verified. I cannot charge or credit anything that has not yet been verified, but I can charge or credit to anything else. Nothing has been dispensed to this patient, and I can see that in the total dose and the total quantity field, but I can certainly charge one if we sent one up. Number of days and the number of doses. And if I so now I submit it, and now you can see that I've charged that to the patient under the standard price schedule. So, and I'm just in as a regular technician. So if you're receiving stock and you know who it belonged to, and you're putting it back into rotation, you can credit what was sent up to the patient.
Okay, thank you very much about this. This is if it is something patient specific, but if they're bringing stuff from the ADU back, returned, was in the return bin, does it also get credited here?
So if it was in your ADUs, do you have a return? And when they return, do they return it under the patient name? If they return it under the patient name, that credit has already occurred at the ADU level. There's
Correct.
no need to do that at the.
Right. The only thing is sometimes sometimes the nurses would put stuff in the return bin, but sometimes they put it in the outside the return bin. Like she brought it, patient refused it, she didn't open the pouch yet. She just put it for us in our drop-off bin, or we call it pickup bin.
Okay.
In that case, they are bringing it from the floor. They don't really know what patient is it belonging to. There must be a way
Okay.
to credit it back to our inventory. How would they do that?
Charlene, if you look up, if you just get like there is batch crediting, I think up there where the barcode, yeah, it's not active.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
batch
yeah.
crediting is still specific to a patient.
Click on the barcode icon.
Yeah, it's still
Still.
specific to the patient. So the only way that that can happen, I think, is in your inventory management. So that would have to be a supply chain person. I don't
So-
know if I have access to. So again, the buttons that I have access to, probably DB item, maybe DB location. Sorry, I don't, not lot number, not maintenance, car replenishment.
Are you looking for the
So-
distribution manager? It should be the distribution manager, or is it what are you looking for crediting?
Can I just ask, have we had a fulsome kind of walkthrough about just where things get charged on this, or has that done through the supply chain part? Because I'm just thinking about, like, currently, this has also come up in my little notes of things I need to ask, is that we currently charge on dispense to the unit. We don't charge on dispense to the patient. So I've already charged things out. I'm going to just trying to figure out how, anyway, I'm going to figure out that out. But then also, what is interfaced with the ADU in terms of back to Cerner? So are all those charges and everything, like when it dispenses out and then returns, is that interfaced into Cerner, that return credit back?
So.
And sorry,
In
just add one more thing. When my currently on Pyxis, my staff, when the nurses return something, if it's not a narcotic, my staff just add it back to Pyxis stock. They don't return it back to pharmacy. So I gotta think about kind of overall, what is the global picture of how this works?
So within the Cerner system, charges are applied at dispense. And dispense means dispensed from central pharmacy or removed from an Omnicell or Pyxis station. Those are dispense events. So those will be applied directly to the patient. Anything that is, thanks, Hosam, item adjust. Anything that is put up in the cabinets would not necessarily be a charge to the unit, because it'll be charged out when the patient receives it, when it's removed under that patient name. There might be an inventory shifting, so you're gonna shift the inventory from inpatient to that unit, but it's not really charged to that unit.
Okay. And then the inventory shifting, so Giants, okay. And so the inventory shifting is going to be done automatically through the interfaces from the ADUs to, like, so when or do I have to, my staff have to manually shift the inventory, or will it be done automatically through the
Automatically.
interface? Okay, that's all. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Yeah, when they do stock replenishment,
'Kay.
when they do stock load and unload, that automatically takes care in the
And in
system.
and in Cerner's brain, in Cerner's mind, when the stock is on the ADU, does it think it is still pharmacy's stock, or is it the floor's stock? Like,
It's
does
the
it count?
hospital's
It's the
stock.
hospital stock.
Yeah.
Just there's a difference here, because when you're thinking about when we do inventory, like, what does that mean? And then, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Basically, it's outside of the main pharmacy.
Okay. Outside of the main pharmacy, but it's still pharmacy's stock, sort of.
So to the icon that Hossam put in the chat, the item adjustment, item return is not an icon that's even accessible to the general pharmacy tech position. So item adjustments and item returns would need to be done by a supply chain position.
One quick question. I know we're at time, but do you still have this charge credit open? It froze on me here, but when you opened up and we clicked on the barcode, if you go down, so if you click on the barcode and go down to the this patient icon, if you change this to Medicaid or medication barcode, what does that take you? Is that still patient specific?
I've never done that, so I don't know. I can see if I can put a barcode in there.
If you could put a barcode, I tried random numbers, but it didn't work.
Random numbers.
Yeah.
Pick one that I know pretty much everybody is on, which is Tylenol.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's gonna still ask for a patient name or like to link it to a patient or not.
I wonder if it's the med label that's generated with the patient.
So it'll still search for an order with that. So it has to be a med, and it'll pull up the patient.
Yeah.
So it's
who
a
had
patient
that
yeah.
med.
Or their ID
It's
specific.
still patient
specific.
Yeah.
Okay. So it has to be through the inventory or the supply chain application then.
So if they bring any meds from the floor that was in the drop-off bin to close the loop, they have to put it in a basket for the inventory technician to be able to credit it back to the pharmacy.
If it's not patient specific.
It's not specific, if it's not patient specific, but if it is patient specific, then they can just go and credit it to that patient.
Yeah, and you can batch credit it and just scan, and we'll just go in, or yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I know we're 4 minutes, Charlene, past 4. Is there any other? The last item from the agenda was basically the agenda items for the next meetings. But I'm not sure if you want to. Do you have anything, or we already know next week would be?
So next week we've got the clinical surveillance.
Yeah.
And that's going to be next week's. And then on Wednesday, November 6th, we've got workload. So I don't know how long the workload discussion might be. We might be able to squeeze in 1 or 2 other topics there. If you guys have some topics that you feel are weren't covered on the Lumio library, on the recordings, or in any of the job aids that you want us to touch base on, can you feed those through to Anthony, Hossam, myself, and we'll get those on a future agenda.
Can we verbally pop some out right now to you, if we can take a couple minutes?
We're going to take Craig's question first.
Yep.
That's perfect, because it's exactly what Anna wanted to do. and if it's been covered somewhere else, please let me know. But we're talking about range doses at our site because as we understand it, and our ability to try has not been successful. We can't have range doses in Cerner, but
Correct.
we're thinking about cutover, and we have range doses today. And how do we go about getting them into Cerner? We're toying with some ideas with respect to like auto subs day of. We're talking to the physician leads for our organization, but like what's being taught to physicians about range doses, or do you guys know? And the other question I had in the same vein was the Lumio library actually says range doses are possible, and gave some examples of morphine and metoclopramide and stuff like that, I think. But when trying to duplicate them ourselves, it looks like it was made specifically for something else, or it was turned off for us. So if we could have some discussion about that at a future one, I would really appreciate it.
Russia?
Yes, it was also about items that we need to clarify. The supply chain, we should be able to, at the end of every month, get a report to tell us, we call it drug allocation report, expense allocation report from every unit, how much they have used and how much we are charging them. Right now, we're doing this through the ADU. In the future, Lumio, I guess we may need to continue the same way, or is there a method that we're not aware of?
Could we take that to the training
Next.
or next week? Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I think finance. I think there's
yeah.
a session with finance at the
Yeah.
training next week, right? So hopefully
Yes.
that gets covered.
Yeah, so Rasha, if you're going to be there, can you please bring that question to Matt?
Okay.
Anna.
All right. So if we have so we're gonna do the PCS stuff that Sue was gonna do. Also, if we could see some of the reporting for like antimicrobial stewardship and some of those pieces, that would also be very helpful. I'm not sure if you're aware of who is going to train reporting and how it's going to be done, but let me tell you, it's my like my privacy officer / health information person, and she doesn't understand anything about pharmacy reports or what we actually need. She won't even be able to understand if it's built properly. Is it possible to have just to take a look at some of the reports that are going to be there that are in the system? Because there's a whole admin section with a bunch of reports apparently, and no one has seen or heard of it, not in my organization, except to know that some stuff is built and hopefully it's what we need. So that was one. We talked about supply chain access. We talked about the workload, and it'd be nice to see some of, I don't know, some of the workload, reports, because currently we run some workload reports and stuff. So it'd be nice to see how some of that report gets done. I don't know if there's job aids. I've looked through what's there and I couldn't find anything that that would help with that. So that would be helpful. The other thing I think maybe we still need to kind of talk about, I don't know how everybody else feels, just maybe understanding, again, I know we talked about the cutover, or we're having our cutover meeting, right? So never mind, all the cutover stuff we'll save for that because it's giving me stress. So we're there. And I also would just like an update from everybody of like how they're managing with having to change all their barcodes, because I'm at the point where I'm probably going to have to pay overtime to try and get this all done. So I'm very stressed and very frustrated. So I'm just curious to know how everybody is managing all that, but we can I don't know if that's even a discussion point, but anyway, so that's there. And I'm just trying to think too for cutover, like what am I missing and what do I not know? And I don't know what I don't know. And so I really am relying on Jose, Charlene and the team to like to fill in those gaps, because honestly, I am finding things out every couple of days of stuff I didn't know, I wasn't aware of. That was just like, oh shoot, now I have to deal with this too and try to figure out a plan. And it's actually causing a lot of anxiety for me. It's also causing a lot of anxiety for my staff, because it's coming up as they're like doing the supply chain training or we're doing something else. And it's like, shoot, now I have to figure this out too. So it's actually causing a high level of frustration for all of us. And that is also why I am very frustrated on these calls sometimes, because I need answers to things and I'm not getting them, or I'm not understanding why we're spending our time, talking about some stuff that really isn't probably as exciting, or as not exciting, as relevant to this group, then we aren't. So I just really need to hammer out some of those things that I don't understand.
I think I feel what you're feeling, Anna, and the biggest one I feel is I don't know what I don't know.
We'll see if we can get some copies of the cutover documents sent to you guys ahead of Friday's meeting. I don't know if Rachel's still on. Oh yeah, you are.
Is it
and then
anything
that way, at
different than
least
what you've
you'll-
already sent? Like the couple pager that you already sent before, or is it just that document?
So the document that I sent before, the 2-pager document, is more about clinical cutover and what you're going to be doing when you're transposing information for that particular patient from system A to system B. But the other piece to the cutover discussions are what else needs to be done. The inventory in your pharmacy, the inventory in your cabinets, what else needs to be done outside of just taking patient information and transposing it over.
That'd be very helpful, because I've already made my schedule. I had to post it already, and now I'm realizing that I am screwed. So
Yeah, so it's basically a checklist, things that are going to be done on that day, who's responsible for it, whether it's Cerner that's responsible or the orgs that are responsible. It's kind of like a checklist so that you know ahead of time what's going to need to be done.
And Matt had sent out like a big spreadsheet checklist before too, and I don't think we've
Yes.
ever gone back to that, because we didn't have a copy of the spreadsheet, so we at the time of the meeting, and then we've had a follow-up meeting, but we never got back to that, what was in that spreadsheet and what we were kind of doing with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because that might also, I don't know if that's relevant, but that may also be helpful, because there's probably stuff in there I need to do. And
Yeah,
I
we
Yes.
may,
and I haven't had time to like look through the giant document that he sent out. I have a little bit, but not really.
yeah, we
One
may want
last
to talk
thing.
about this at the next meeting, at the cutover meeting, because I think Matt, when he sent it as well, he mentioned that he wanted us to populate the names of the resources, local resources, or the team members doing the work, like physical count and all this and that as well. I found I still have some questions. Like I had a meeting with the supply chain team today, but I still had some questions as well on who would be doing this, because some of it would be IT or / someone with more non-clinical, like Kim Weir, for example, working on the interfaces and making sure that things are working. And also there are some items that basically may need finance input as well.
Yeah, because I have big questions about the finance part because of how we've already charged things out, and how is that now impacted because it's going to be different, right? So I just really need to understand some of those pieces as well.
Okay, thanks, Anna. So it's 4:15, we're past, but good discussions. We'll meet again, I guess, most of us on Friday morning, but we'll meet next week for the pharmacy clinical surveillance. Thanks, everyone, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jose.
You.